I'd like to tell you a story. There's a reason that these 7 words, "I'd like to tell you a story," are among the most common suggestions to starting a speech. It's how Steve Jobs started his famous commencement address at Stanford. It's the reason that so many restaurants print their origin stories right on the menu. The reason that so many college students will perk up from their cell phones when their professor indicates he's about to tell a tale. The reason is simple. We relate to stories. Some of the oldest culture that we have is in the form of cave paintings, which we believe are not merely decorative, but serve as drawings, as instructions or stories, oftentimes about animals, about those who hunt them, about us. These are our oldest stories, and we've only gotten better at telling them. We tell stories every single day. Whenever anything interesting happens, the first thing we do is pick up our phone and call our friend, write a blog or post on Facebook. We relate to stories. It's how we share our experiences. "How was your day?" is one of the most commonly asked questions, and the person asking is usually disappointed if they get an adjective rather than an anecdote. In formal storytelling, one of the most famous examples is Homer's Odyssey, which was told orally for dozens of years before ever being written down. At over 12,000 lines long, that's no trivial feat. We as a species used to sit around for hours and listen to minstrels and authors tell us their tales. And we still do. Modern storytelling is a billion-dollar industry. Each week, the New York Times publishes a list of the best-selling books and top-grossing movies from the previous week. These are our stories. Our minstrels are named Spielberg and King. While it's true that the New York Times also releases a list of the best-selling nonfiction books each week, it's rare for a work that isn't a biography, a story of someone's life, to be prominently featured on that list. We crave stories, and stories about famous people, as biographies tend to be, allow us to relate to those people who might otherwise seem so untouchable. We're all human. We've had the same experiences. Unfortunately, so many of our stories go untold. We have times in our lives that we designate to telling stories, at weddings, at roasts, at funerals. But it shouldn't be a thrice-a-life kind of deal. The trope of an aspiring author with half a manuscript tucked under a mattress is so tried and prevalent because that innate desire to tell stories exists within all of us. And we have to capitalize upon that. We don't get to tell stories when we're dead, so why waste the opportunity when we're alive? No one can learn anything from a man who tells no tales. Now more than any other time in history, we have tools that allow us to communicate with anyone on the planet, incredible tools that allow us to share our stories with absolutely anyone. And we do use those tools, but they're underutilized. Instead of stories, most social media is filled with tidbits of news filed down to a bite-sized 140 characters. We aren't sharing deep thoughts and experiences as much as we are brief witticisms. We're constantly seeing updates from people's lives, but we know less about them than ever before. The information we do see is shallow. It's superficial, the smallest surface-level details that can be shared, the smallest things. Occasionally, we will see a Facebook status that seems to bear all, but these are the exceptions rather than the rule. And even these are censored for public consumption. One of the most popular Facebook groups, with over 17 million likes, is Humans of New York. This page features a resident of New York, a picture of them, and a story of their life. And through just a couple hundred words, we're able to relate to someone we've never met, because they're sharing their stories, they're building their legacy. They're offering us a brief glimpse into their life, a small window into the world in which we live. But like I said, even these are censored for public consumption. Think about even the smallest differences between a personal story you'd share with a stranger and one you'd share with your best friend or your mother. It's easy to see. Think for a moment about the people you know well, the people who really, truly know you. Think about the experiences you've had together, spending time together almost certainly, and sharing experiences, about decisions you've made, people you've met. That's how we get to know each other. We tell stories at funerals to honor the dead, and these stories can last for generations. It's not just a way to connect with each other. It's a way to be remembered. And isn't that what we all want? To stave off the inevitability of death for just a little longer? They say that a person dies two deaths. One when they stop breathing, and one when their name is no longer spoken. So go, extend your life, tell a story. As I said earlier, storytelling isn't mostly done in the formal setting. Every day we tell tales of what we've seen or heard, how we came to know what we know, believe what we believe, or act how we act. In short, storytelling helps others understand exactly who we are and why. But the storyteller has certain obligations to the narrative. You notice I say storyteller and not narrator. Before I delve into exactly what these obligations are, I want to establish a firm distinction between these two entities. A narrator is objective. He states the truth of what happened, nothing more, nothing less. An unreliable narrator is actually a storyteller. He includes a bit of himself in every telling and may shift things so that he comes out looking a little better. It's this second persona, that of a storyteller, which carries the responsibilities and burdens associated with the act of storytelling. A storyteller should never lie. To lie is to alter the narrative, or even the truth of what happened. Instead, the storyteller can gloss over certain details. It's one thing to say that while I was on a date with my girlfriend, a woman burst into the restaurant calling me Jim and claiming to be my wife. It's quite another thing to say that my name is Jim, and she is in fact my wife. This one bit of information dramatically changes that story, but it's not a lie. Information like this, background information, isn't known to all parties. And that disparity in knowledge is why telling the same story from multiple points of view is such a popular trope. It's featured in countless movies and TV shows and books, including the best-selling Game of Thrones series. Hearing different characters react to information, like other characters and other actions, can dramatically change how those actions are received to the audience. In addition to glossing over details, the storyteller gets to decide what background information to include. It's the little boy who claims that his sister hit him, but neglects to mention that he had first stolen her snack. It's the state of friendships, of politics, of treaties. These are all things that the narrator should mention, but the storyteller need not. With a storyteller, the audience should understand that they aren't getting the whole story, because the old adage rings true. There are multiple sides to every story, and we each only see one small part of that. It's a common trope in crime fiction, including detective fiction, for multiple characters to be interrogated about an event. And they each tell the same story, adding in little clues. And as those stories get told, they add up like puzzle pieces, painting one greater picture, the truth of what actually happened. And that's what all stories aim to do, because there is only one true narrative, what actually happened. And we each only see one small part of that. We're all characters in the stories that go on around us. And we can make those same parallels, crime fiction and our own lives. It's been said that there are only 7 unique plots. But we've taken those 7 plots and told millions of stories. We've taken them to every corner of the globe, to imaginary realms, to outer space and the depths of the oceans. But it's not those same 7 plots that keep us coming back. We're enthralled by the plot, sure. But when you boil away the details, we've heard it before. What keeps us coming back is the characters in each and how they react to the twists and the turns. Stories are made of characters. Imagine for a moment the lead character from your favorite TV show. Replace her with the lead character from your favorite movie. How does each one change? I imagine the difference isn't negligible, because stories are made of characters. And as I said, we're all characters in the stories that go on around us, in the stories that we tell, and in the stories that other people tell about us. But we're also more than that. We don't just live in those stories. We live in the narrative. And we have the opportunity to be more than just characters. We can be storytellers. We can influence not only how we're remembered, but how those around us are remembered. But it's up to us to tell those tales. So go. Tell your story. Tell a personal bit of information. Share a story from your life with anyone who will listen. Build your legacy. And while you're at it, truly start to listen for the stories of those around you. Thank you.